I never thought the worst day of my life would lead to the best thing that ever happened to me. There I was, standing in the hallway outside my apartment, still holding the box of my stuff that Amy Murphy had just thrown at me, when her mother, Carol Ramirez, opened the door across the hall and asked if I wanted to get coffee. My name is Raymond James. I am 29 years old, and this is the story of how my world turned completely upside down in the most beautiful way possible. But let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment, because nothing about this makes sense unless you understand where it all started. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments. I need to know I am not the only one who believes that sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor about timing. 3 weeks before that hallway encounter, I was living what I thought was a pretty decent life. I worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm downtown, had my own one-bedroom apartment in a quiet complex, and was dating Amy Murphy, a 26-year-old nurse who lived across the hall with her mother. Amy and I had been together for 8 months, and I honestly thought we were heading somewhere serious. She was smart, funny, and we had this easy chemistry that made everything feel natural. The apartment complex where we lived was one of those older buildings where everyone knew everyone else's business. Thin walls, shared laundry room, parking spaces that were basically a free-for-all. I had moved in about a year earlier, and Amy and her mom, Carol, had been there for 3 years. Carol was 52, recently divorced, and worked as an executive at some big consulting firm. She was always polite when we passed in the hallway, but we never really talked beyond basic pleasantries. Amy used to complain about living with her mom, said it cramped her style and made her feel like a kid again. But rent in the city was brutal, and they split a two-bedroom that would have cost either of them a fortune alone. Plus, Carol traveled for work a lot, so Amy had the place to herself pretty regularly. It seemed like a smart arrangement, even if Amy did not always appreciate it. I should have seen the signs that things with Amy were not as solid as I thought. She had started working extra shifts at the hospital, claiming they were short-staffed. When she was home, she seemed distracted, always checking her phone. Our conversations became more surface level, less of those deep talks we used to have about everything and nothing. But I chalked it up to work stress and tried to be supportive. The night everything fell apart was a Tuesday in October. I had picked up Thai food from our favorite place, planning to surprise Amy when she got home from her shift. I knocked on her door around 7:30, holding the bag of food and feeling pretty good about being a thoughtful boyfriend. Carol answered, looking surprised to see me. She told me Amy was not home yet, but invited me to wait inside. We sat in their living room, making awkward small talk while the food got cold. Carol seemed nervous, kept glancing at her phone. Finally, around 8:15, Amy walked through the door, but she was not alone. Anthony Ruiz was with her. I knew Anthony from the hospital where Amy worked. He was an emergency room doctor, tall, confident, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged in a medical drama. Amy stopped dead when she saw me sitting there with her mom and the Thai food. The conversation that followed was brutal. Amy did not even try to lie or make excuses. She told me she had been seeing Anthony for 6 weeks, that she was sorry, but she just was not feeling it with me anymore. She said I was a nice guy, but nice was not enough. She needed someone who challenged her, someone with ambition and drive, someone like Anthony. I sat there processing this information while Anthony stood behind her looking uncomfortable but not apologetic. Carol excused herself to the kitchen, clearly not wanting to witness this train wreck. Amy kept talking, explaining how she had tried to find a good time to tell me, but there never seemed to be a right moment. She made it sound like she was doing me a favor by being honest. The worst part was not even the cheating or the breakup itself. It was the way she talked about our relationship like it had been some kind of placeholder while she waited for something better to come along. 8 months of my life, all those moments I thought were real and meaningful, reduced to her settling for nice until Upgrade came along. I left the Thai food on their coffee table and walked out. Amy called after me saying she hoped we could still be friends, that she did not want things to be weird since we lived across from each other. I did not turn around or respond. What was I supposed to say to that? For the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into work and tried to avoid running into Amy in the hallway. It was not easy in a building that small, but I managed to time my comings and goings pretty well. When I did see her, she would give me these awkward little waves like we were casual acquaintances instead of two people who had shared 8 months of intimacy. Anthony was around a lot, and they were not particularly subtle about it. The hardest part was the loneliness. I had gotten used to having someone to text during the day, someone to share meals with, someone to talk to about the random thoughts that popped into my head. Now I came home to an empty apartment every night and tried to convince myself I was fine. I was not fine. I started staying late at work, partly to avoid the possibility of hallway encounters, and partly because I did not have anything better to do. My coworker Donald Richardson kept asking if I wanted to grab drinks or hit up some bars, but I was not ready for that scene yet. The idea of trying to meet someone new felt exhausting. 3 weeks after the breakup, on a rainy Thursday evening in November, everything changed. I was coming home from another long day at the office, carrying groceries in my laptop bag, when I saw Carol struggling with her car in the parking lot. The hood was up, and she was standing there in a business suit and heels, looking frustrated and completely out of her element. I almost kept walking. The last thing I wanted was to get involved in anything connected to Amy, but Carol looked genuinely distressed, and it was starting to rain harder. My dad had taught me basic car maintenance when I was a teenager, and I could not just walk past someone who obviously needed help. I approached her and asked if everything was okay. She looked up with this expression of relief mixed with embarrassment. Her car would not start. She had an important conference call in an hour, and she did not know anything about engines. I set down my groceries and took a look. It was a dead battery, simple fix. I had jumper cables in my truck, so I pulled it around and got her car running in about 10 minutes. Carol was incredibly grateful, kept thanking me and apologizing for the inconvenience. She seemed genuinely surprised that I had stopped to help, which made me wonder what kind of impression she had of me. As I was putting the jumper cables away, she asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime as a thank you. Not right then, because she had her call, but maybe over the weekend. I almost said no automatically. Dating my ex-girlfriend mother seemed like the definition of a bad idea, but something in her voice made me pause. It was not flirtation or anything inappropriate. It was loneliness. I recognized it because I had been living with it for 3 weeks. Carol was not asking me out on a date. She was asking for human connection with someone who had shown her a small kindness. So I said yes. We met that Saturday at a coffee shop called Grounds for Thought, about 10 minutes from our building. I got there first and grabbed a corner table, still not entirely sure what I was doing. When Carol walked in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the business suit and professional demeanor. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair loose instead of pulled back, and she looked younger and more relaxed than I had ever seen her. We talked for 2 hours, not about Amy, not about the breakup, not about anything heavy, just normal conversation between two people getting to know each other. Carol told me about her job, how she had worked her way up from an entry-level position to executive over 20 years. She talked about her divorce, which had been finalized 6 months early after a marriage that had been dead for years. I told her about my work, my family back in Ohio, my love of old movies and terrible cooking experiments. She laughed at my stories about burning water and somehow making scrambled eggs that were both runny and overcooked. It felt natural and easy in a way that surprised me. What struck me most was how present she was. When I talked, she actually listened instead of waiting for her turn to speak. She asked follow-up questions that showed she was genuinely interested in my answers. It had been a long time since I felt like someone was really hearing me. When we finally left the coffee shop, Carol suggested we do it again the following week. I agreed without hesitation. Walking back to our cars, she touched my arm briefly and thanked me again for helping with her battery. It was just a friendly gesture, but something about it stayed with me. Over the next month, our coffee meetings became a regular thing. Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, same table at Grounds for Thought. We started texting during the week, nothing flirty or inappropriate, just sharing funny things that happened at work or articles we thought the other would find interesting. I began to look forward to those Saturday afternoons in a way that surprised me. Carol was intelligent and funny, with this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. She had traveled extensively for work and had stories about business meetings in Tokyo and client dinners in London that made my own life seem pretty tame by comparison. But she also had this vulnerability that she let me see in small glimpses. She talked about how hard the divorce had been, not because she loved her ex-husband, but because it meant admitting she had wasted 20 years trying to make something work that was fundamentally broken. She mentioned feeling invisible sometimes, like the world had decided she was past her prime at 52. I found myself thinking about her between our coffee dates. Not in a romantic way, at least not at first. She was just good company, someone who made me feel less alone. But gradually I started noticing things. The way her eyes lit up when she laughed. How she always remembered details from previous conversations. The fact that she treated the barista at the coffee shop like a human being instead of just someone providing a service. Amy and Anthony were still very much together and very much obvious about it. I would see them in the hallway or parking lot, and it barely registered anymore. Whatever I had felt for Amy seemed like ancient history compared to the easy friendship I was building with Carol. The shift from friendship to something more happened gradually, then all at once. It was our sixth Saturday coffee date, early December, and Carol seemed different, more nervous, less talkative than usual. Finally, she told me she had something to confess. She had been looking forward to our coffee dates more than she should. She had started thinking about me during the week in ways that went beyond friendship. She felt terrible about it because I was Amy's ex-boyfriend and she was old enough to be my mother. Well, almost. And she did not want to make things weird between us. I sat there listening to her stumble through this confession, and all I could think was how relieved I felt that she had said it first, because I had been having the same thoughts and feeling guilty about them for weeks. I told her I did not care about the age difference. I told her that our Saturday afternoons had become the best part of my week. I told her that she was beautiful and smart and kind, and anyone who could not see that was an idiot, including her ex-husband. The conversation that followed was careful and honest. We both acknowledged that this was complicated. There was the age gap, the fact that she was Amy's mother, the potential for workplace gossip since we lived in the same building. But there was also this undeniable connection that had been building for weeks. We decided to take things slow and see what developed. No pressure, no expectations, just two people who enjoyed each other, company exploring where it might lead. We agreed to keep things private for now, not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted to figure out what we were before dealing with other people's opinions. Our relationship evolved naturally over the following weeks. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinners turned into long walks around the city. We started spending time at each other's apartments, watching movies and talking until late into the night. Carol was unlike anyone I had ever been with. She was confident in ways that came from life experience rather than bravado. She knew what she wanted and was not afraid to ask for it. She had lived through real challenges and come out stronger. Being with her made me feel like I was finally dating a grown-up. The physical attraction developed alongside the emotional connection. There was nothing rushed or desperate about it, just this slow-building tension that made every accidental touch electric. When we finally kissed, 3 weeks after our coffee shop confession, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I had never been with an older woman before, and I was surprised by how different it was. Carol was comfortable in her own skin in a way that younger women I had dated were not. She did not need constant validation or reassurance. She was present and engaged and unashamed about what she wanted. But it was not just about the physical connection. Carol challenged me intellectually in ways I had not experienced before. She had strong opinions about everything from politics to art to the best way to make coffee. She pushed me to think deeper about my career goals, my relationships with my family, my plans for the future. We had been seeing each other for about 6 weeks when the first real challenge appeared. Amy had apparently noticed that I was around less and seemed happier. She started asking Carol questions about whether I was dating someone new. Carol deflected as best she could, but Amy was persistent. The situation came to a head on a Friday evening in January. I was leaving Carol's apartment around 10 p.m. when Amy and Anthony were coming home from dinner. Amy saw me in the hallway and stopped dead. She asked what I was doing there. I could have lied, could have said I was borrowing something or helping with a computer problem, but I was tired of sneaking around like we were doing something wrong. So I told her the truth. Amy's reaction was exactly what I had expected. Shock, disgust, accusations that I was trying to get back at her by seducing her mother. She said it was sick and pathetic and that I was obviously having some kind of breakdown. Anthony just stood there looking uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere else. Carol came out of her apartment when she heard the raised voices. Amy turned on her immediately, asking how she could do this to her, how she could betray her own daughter by dating her ex-boyfriend. The whole thing was ugly and painful and exactly why we had tried to keep things private. But watching Carol handle Amy tantrum showed me something important about the woman I was falling in love with. She did not get defensive or apologetic. She calmly told Amy that she was an adult who could make her own decisions about who to spend time with. She said she was sorry Amy was upset, but that her relationship with me was not about Amy at all. Amy stormed into their apartment and slammed the door. Anthony followed after giving us both an awkward nod. Carol and I stood in the hallway for a moment processing what had just happened. I asked if she was okay, if she wanted to end things to avoid family drama. Carol looked at me with this expression of determination I had never seen before. She said she had spent too many years letting other people's opinions dictate her choices. She was done with that. She told me she was falling in love with me, and if Amy could not handle that, it was Amy's problem to solve. She said she had never felt as happy and alive as she did when she was with me, and she was not giving that up for anyone. Standing there in that hallway, listening to this incredible woman choose me over family peace, I knew I was completely gone. I told her I loved her too, that I had probably loved her since our third coffee date, but had been too scared to admit it. The next few weeks were tense. Amy barely spoke to either of us, and when she did, it was cold and hostile. She started bringing Anthony around even more, like she was trying to prove something. The whole situation was uncomfortable, but Carol and I decided we were not going to let Amy's disapproval derail what we were building. We went public with our relationship, at least within our small circle. I told my coworker Donald, who was shocked but ultimately supportive. Carol told her sister Barbara Garcia, who lived in Phoenix and was thrilled that Carol had found someone who made her happy. The age difference was something we had to navigate carefully. There were moments when it was obvious, like when Carol made references to movies or music from before I was born, or when I did not understand some cultural reference from her generation. But mostly it did not matter. We were just two people who enjoyed each other's company and were building something real together. My family reaction was mixed when I finally told them over a video call. My parents were polite but clearly concerned about the age gap and the complicated situation with Amy. My sister Catherine Wright was more direct, asking if I was sure I was not just rebounding with someone completely different from Amy. But when they met Carol during a visit in March, their concerns evaporated pretty quickly. It was obvious that we were happy together and that this was not some kind of midlife crisis or revenge plot. Carol's family was more accepting from the start. Her sister Barbara said she had never heard Carol sound so happy in phone calls. Her parents, who lived in Florida, were just glad she was moving on from her divorce and finding joy again. The workplace dynamic was interesting to navigate. Carol colleagues knew she was seeing someone, but not the details. A few of them made comments about her seeming more relaxed and happy lately. My coworkers were endlessly curious about my mysterious older woman, as Donald had started calling her. We decided to keep the relationship relatively private at work, not because we were ashamed, but because we did not need the distraction of office gossip. Carol had worked too hard to build her professional reputation to have it overshadowed by speculation about her personal life. Spring brought new challenges and new joys. Amy had started staying at Anthony Place more often, which reduced the hallway tension, but also made it clear that she was not planning to reconcile with either of us anytime soon. Carol struggled with this, despite her strong front. Amy was her only child and the estrangement was painful. I encouraged Carol to keep trying to bridge the gap with Amy, even though Amy had made it clear she thought I was a predator and her mother was having some kind of breakdown. Carol would text Amy occasionally, asking how she was doing or sharing something funny that reminded her of Amy's childhood. Amy's responses were minimal but not completely hostile, which felt like progress. Meanwhile, our relationship continued to deepen. We had fallen into comfortable routines like grocery shopping together on Sunday mornings and taking evening walks around the neighborhood. Carol had a key to my apartment, and I had one to hers. We were not officially living together, but we spent most nights in the same bed. The sex was incredible, better than anything I had experienced before. Carol's confidence and experience made her an amazing partner. She knew what she wanted and was not shy about asking for it. She also paid attention to what I needed in ways that made me feel completely seen and appreciated. But beyond the physical connection, I loved the quiet domestic moments. Making coffee together in the mornings while she got ready for work, watching her read reports on the couch while I worked on freelance design projects, listening to her talk through work problems and offering whatever insight I could. Carol made me want to be better at everything. She encouraged me to take on more challenging projects at work and to think about starting my own design business eventually. She helped me see possibilities I had not considered before. By summer, we had been together for 8 months, longer than my entire relationship with Amy. We were talking about moving in together officially, maybe finding a bigger place where we could each have space to work from home. The conversation felt natural and exciting, not scary like similar talks had been with previous girlfriends. The breakthrough with Amy came in July, in the most unexpected way possible. Carol had been in the hospital for a minor procedure, nothing serious, but she needed someone to drive her home afterward. I was at work and could not get away, so she called a taxi. Amy happened to be getting off shift when Carol was being discharged. She saw her mother looking tired and vulnerable, getting into a taxi alone, and something shifted. Amy called Carol that evening to check on her, the first real conversation they had had in months. Carol told me about the call with tears in her eyes. Amy had not apologized exactly, but she had asked how Carol was feeling and whether she needed anything. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a crack in the wall Amy had built between them. Over the following weeks, Amy started texting Carol occasionally. Nothing deep or meaningful, just check-ins about work or comments about things happening in the building. She was still cold toward me, but the outright hostility had faded into uncomfortable politeness. The real turning point came in August. Anthony had been offered a position at a hospital in Seattle, and he wanted Amy to come with him. Amy was torn between the career opportunity and leaving her mother, especially since they had just started rebuilding their relationship. Carol encouraged Amy to take the job, told her that Seattle was a great city and that the distance might actually be good for both of them. Amy was surprised by this response, had expected her mother to guilt trip her into staying. The night before Amy was supposed to give Anthony her answer, she knocked on Carol's door. I was there watching a movie, and Amy asked if she could talk to both of us. It was the first time the three of us had been in the same room since the hallway confrontation. Amy sat down and told us she had been thinking a lot about relationships and what it meant to be happy. She said she had been angry about our relationship partly because it forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about her own choices. She admitted that she had never been as happy with Anthony as Carol seemed to be with me. She said watching us together, even from a distance, had made her realize that real connection was not about age or status or what looked good on paper. It was about finding someone who saw you and chose you every day. Amy told Carol she was sorry for making her choose between her daughter and her happiness. She said she could see that I made Carol happy in ways that her father never had, and that was what mattered. Then she turned to me and said something I will never forget. She said she had been wrong to dismiss our relationship as settling for nice. She said nice was actually pretty rare and valuable, and she was sorry it had taken her so long to realize that. Amy decided to take the job in Seattle. But before she left, she and Carol had several long conversations about their relationship and their individual journeys. Carol helped Amy pack and drove her to the airport, something that would have been unimaginable 6 months earlier. At the airport, Amy hugged me goodbye and told me to take care of her mother. She said she was glad Carol had found someone who appreciated her. It was not exactly a blessing, but it was acceptance, and that felt like enough. With Amy gone, Carol and I finally felt free to build our relationship without the weight of family disapproval. We found a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment across town and moved in together in September. Having our own space, away from all the history and drama of the old building, felt like a fresh start. Living together full-time revealed new dimensions of our compatibility. Carol was organized and efficient in ways that complemented my more creative, scattered approach to life. I helped her relax and be more spontaneous. She helped me focus and think more strategically about my goals. We developed new traditions and routines. Saturday morning farmers market trips, Sunday evening meal prep sessions where Carol would organize her week while I worked on design projects. Weeknight dinners where we would talk through our days and plan weekend adventures. Carol encouraged me to finally start my own design business, something I had been talking about for years but never had the confidence to pursue. She helped me write a business plan and connected me with some of her professional contacts who needed design work. By the end of the year, I was making enough freelance income to consider leaving my day job. The holidays were our first real test as a couple integrating with extended family. We spent Thanksgiving with my family in Ohio, and Carol fit in seamlessly. My parents were completely won over by her warmth and intelligence. My sister Catherine told me privately that she had never seen me so relaxed and happy in a relationship. Christmas was more complicated because Amy was back in town visiting. But the three of us managed to have dinner together without any drama. Amy seemed genuinely happy in Seattle and was dating a pediatrician she had met at her new hospital. She and Carol were rebuilding their relationship slowly with regular phone calls and text exchanges. Amy even pulled me aside during that visit to thank me for making her mother happy. She said Carol seemed more confident and alive than she had in years. Amy told me she was sorry for how she had reacted initially and that she hoped we would be happy together. As we approached our one-year anniversary, I found myself thinking about the future in ways I never had before. With previous girlfriends, including Amy, I had always felt like I was waiting for something to change or improve. With Carol, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Carol had mentioned marriage a few times, not as pressure, but as something she thought about. Her divorce had been finalized for over a year, and she said she was open to trying again with the right person. I had never been married, had never really thought seriously about it until I met her. The idea of spending the rest of my life with Carol did not scare me the way commitment had in the past. She made everything better just by being part of it. I could imagine growing old with her, building a business together, maybe even having kids if that was something we both wanted. I started looking at engagement rings in January, not because I felt pressure to propose, but because I could not imagine wanting to be with anyone else. Carol deserves someone who was all in, who chose her completely and publicly. I wanted to be that person. The proposal happened in February on a Saturday afternoon at Grounds for Thought. I had arranged with the owner to have our usual corner table reserved and decorated with flowers. When Carol walked in and saw the setup, she started crying before I even got down on one knee. I told her that she had saved me from a life of settling for okay. I told her that loving her had taught me what it meant to be truly happy. I asked her to marry me not because of some timeline or social expectation, but because I wanted to spend every day for the rest of my life choosing her. She said yes immediately, laughing and crying at the same time. The other customers in the coffee shop started applauding, and the barista brought us champagne that the owner had been keeping in the back for the occasion. Planning our wedding was an adventure in itself. Carol wanted something elegant but not fussy, meaningful but not overly sentimental. We decided on a small ceremony in the Botanical Gardens downtown, followed by dinner at a nice restaurant with close family and friends. Amy flew in from Seattle for the wedding and brought her new boyfriend, Timothy Reed. She had volunteered to help with planning and seemed genuinely excited about the celebration. The night before the ceremony, she and Carol stayed up late talking and laughing like they used to when Amy was younger. The wedding day was perfect. Carol looked absolutely stunning in a simple but elegant dress that showed off her natural beauty. My parents were there, along with my sister and her family. Carol's sister Barbara flew in from Phoenix with her husband Alan Nguyen. A few close friends from work rounded out the guest list. During the ceremony, I looked out at the small group of people who mattered most to us and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. A year and a half earlier, I had been heartbroken and lonely, convinced that I was destined for mediocre relationships and settling for good enough. Now I was marrying the most amazing woman I had ever met. Carol vows made me cry, which I had not expected. She talked about finding love when she had given up on it, about learning that age was just a number when it came to real connection. She said I had taught her that it was never too late to start over and build something beautiful. My vows focused on how Carol had changed my understanding of what partnership could be. I talked about her strength and intelligence and kindness, about how she made me want to be the best version of myself. I promised to love her through whatever challenges life brought our way. The reception was intimate and joyful. Amy gave a toast that brought everyone to tears, talking about how happy she was to see her mother so radiant and loved. She said she had learned important lessons about love from watching our relationship develop, lessons that had helped her in her own romantic life. Our honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, something Carol had always wanted to do but never had the chance during her first marriage. We explored Rome and Florence and Venice, eating incredible food and wandering through museums and just enjoying being newlyweds in one of the most romantic places on earth. Coming home to our apartment as husband and wife felt surreal and wonderful. We had been living together for months, but somehow everything felt different with wedding rings on our fingers. We were officially family now, committed to building a life together. The first year of marriage brought new challenges and deeper intimacy. We navigated career changes as my design business grew, and Carol was promoted to senior executive at her firm. We dealt with family dynamics as Amy got engaged to Timothy and started planning her own wedding. We also faced our first real test as a couple when Carol's father had a heart attack, and we spent several weeks in Florida helping her mother care for him. Seeing Carol under that kind of stress showed me new sides of her strength and vulnerability. Supporting her through that difficult time brought us closer together. By our first anniversary, we had settled into married life in ways that felt both comfortable and exciting. We had joint bank accounts and shared goals and inside jokes that no one else understood. We had also maintained our individual identities and interests, which kept the relationship dynamic and interesting. Carol continued to challenge me professionally and personally. She encouraged me to take on bigger clients and think about expanding my business. She also pushed me to stay connected with my family and maintain friendships outside our marriage. I helped Carol learn to relax and enjoy life outside of work. She had spent so many years focused on climbing the corporate ladder that she had forgotten how to have fun. I introduced her to hiking and camping and other outdoor activities that helped her decompress. Our second year of marriage brought talk of starting a family. Carol was 54, which made pregnancy unlikely but not impossible. We discussed adoption and fostering as alternatives. The conversations were careful and honest, acknowledging both our desires and the practical realities of our situation. Eventually, we decided that our family was complete as it was, but that we wanted to find ways to nurture and mentor young people in our community. Carol started volunteering with a program that helped young women develop business skills. I began teaching design workshops at the local community college. These activities brought new purpose and fulfillment to our lives. We loved being able to share our knowledge and experience with people who were just starting their careers. It felt like a way of giving back and also of creating legacy beyond just our own relationship. Amy wedding in Seattle was a beautiful celebration that brought our extended family together in new ways. Carol and I hosted a pre-wedding dinner for out-of-town guests, and it felt natural and easy to welcome Amy new in-laws into our circle. Amy seemed genuinely happy with Timothy, and their relationship had a stability and maturity that her relationship with Anthony had lacked. During the wedding weekend, Amy pulled me aside to thank me again for being so good to her mother. She said she could see how much Carol had grown and flourished in our marriage. Amy told me she was proud to have me as a stepfather, even though we were close enough in age that the title felt weird. The conversation meant a lot to me because it represented how far we had all come from that ugly confrontation in the hallway. Amy had grown into a woman who could admit when she was wrong and express gratitude for unexpected blessings. Our relationship would never be traditionally familial, but it was built on mutual respect and genuine care for Carol's happiness. As we entered our third year of marriage, I found myself reflecting on how dramatically my life had changed since that rainy Thursday evening when I helped Carol with her car battery. I had gone from lonely and heartbroken to married and fulfilled. I had built a successful business and a strong marriage, and a sense of purpose I had never had before. The age difference that had seemed so significant in the beginning had become irrelevant. Carol and I were partners in every sense of the word, supporting each other's goals and dreams while building something together that was greater than the sum of its parts. People still occasionally made comments about our age gap, especially when we were out with Carol work colleagues or my college friends. But those comments bounced off us because we knew what we had was real and valuable. We had both dated people our own age and had mediocre relationships. Age had nothing to do with compatibility or connection or love. Carol often said that meeting me had taught her that life could still surprise her in the best possible ways. She had thought her romantic life was over after her divorce, that she would spend her 50s and beyond focusing on career and family and accepting that partnership was not in the cards for her anymore. Instead, she had found the love of her life in the most unexpected place and time. She said I had given her permission to want more for herself, to believe that she deserved to be cherished and appreciated and desired. For my part, Carol had taught me what it meant to be with a woman who knew herself completely. She did not need me to complete her, or fix her or provide her with identity. She chose to be with me because I added joy and love to a life that was already full and meaningful. That kind of partnership was something I had never experienced before. With previous girlfriends, including Amy, there had always been an element of neediness or insecurity that made the relationship feel unbalanced. With Carol, we were two whole people who had decided to build something together. As I write this, we have been married for 3 years and together for 4.5. We are currently house hunting, looking for a place with space for both of our home offices and maybe a guest room for when Amy and Timothy visit with their future children. Carol business is thriving, and my design firm now has 2 employees and more work than we can handle. We travel regularly, both for work and pleasure. Last month, we spent 2 weeks in Japan, something that had been on Carol's bucket list for years. Next spring, we are planning a trip to New Zealand to celebrate my 35th birthday and Carol's 58th. The numbers still sound strange when I say them out loud. By the time Carol turns 60, I will still be in my 30s. But those numbers have become meaningless in the context of our daily life. We are just Raymond and Carol, husband and wife, partners in all the ways that matter. Amy and Timothy are expecting their first child next summer, which will make Carol a grandmother at 58 and me a step-grandfather at 35. We are both excited about this new role and have already started planning how we can be supportive grandparents despite the distance. Carol's relationship with Amy has fully healed and grown stronger than it was before. They talk several times a week and visit each other regularly. Amy often tells people that watching her mother marriage taught her what to look for in her own relationship. My family has completely embraced Carol as a daughter-in-law. My parents call her regularly and always ask her opinion on family decisions. My sister Catherine and Carol have become close friends, bonding over their shared love of hiking and wine tasting. Looking back on that terrible night when Amy broke up with me, I can honestly say it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. If Amy had not ended our relationship, I never would have been available when Carol needed help with her car. I never would have gotten to know this incredible woman who became my wife. The universe has a funny way of redirecting our lives when we least expect it. I thought I was building a future with Amy, but that was just preparation for the real thing. Every relationship I had before Carol taught me something about what I wanted and needed in a partner, even if I did not realize it at the time. Carol says she feels the same way about her first marriage. Those 20 years were not wasted because they taught her what she did not want and helped her recognize the real thing when it finally appeared. She learned to value kindness and emotional intelligence over status and ambition. We both believe that timing is everything when it comes to love. If we had met 10 years earlier, we might not have been ready for each other. Carol was still trying to make her first marriage work, and I was still figuring out who I was and what I wanted from life. But we met at exactly the right moment, when we were both open to something unexpected and willing to take a risk on love that did not fit conventional expectations. We were brave enough to ignore other people's opinions and follow our hearts. I think about that often when I see friends struggling with dating or settling for relationships that do not really fulfill them. There is so much pressure to find someone by a certain age or to date within specific parameters that people miss opportunities for real connection. Carol and I are living proof that love does not follow rules or timelines. It shows up when it shows up, often in the most surprising packages. The key is being open to possibilities and willing to take chances on people who might not fit your preconceived notions about who you are supposed to be with. If you are watching this and feeling discouraged about love, I want you to know that your person is out there somewhere. They might not look like what you expect or show up when you think they should, but they are coming. The universe is conspiring to bring you together at exactly the right moment. Do not give up on love because you have been hurt before or because you think you are too old or too young or too anything. Carol thought she was done with romance at 52. I thought I was destined for mediocre relationships at 29. We were both wrong. Stay open to unexpected connections. Be kind to the people around you, even when you do not think there is anything in it for you. Help someone with their car battery, or hold the door, or smile at a stranger. You never know which small act of kindness will change your life forever. And if you find yourself attracted to someone who does not fit the usual patterns, do not dismiss it automatically. Age gaps, different backgrounds, unexpected circumstances, these things matter less than genuine connection and mutual respect and shared values. Carol and I get questions all the time about how we make our relationship work despite the age difference. The truth is, we do not think about the age difference anymore. We just focus on being good partners to each other, supporting each other, dreams, and building a life together that makes us both happy. Every morning I wake up grateful that Amy threw that box at me in the hallway because it led to the best conversation of my life. Every morning Carol wakes up grateful that her car battery died because it gave her an excuse to ask for help from someone who would become her everything. We are proof that sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your real life beginning. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the most important beginning you will ever experience. If you believe in second chances and unexpected love stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more content about real relationships and taking chances on love. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from and whether you believe that age is just a number when it comes to finding your soulmate. And remember, it is never too late to start over. Never too late to find the person who sees you and chooses you and loves you exactly as you are. Your love story is still being written, and the best chapters might be the ones you never saw coming. Love has no expiration date, no age limit, no rules about who you are supposed to choose. Follow your heart, take chances on kindness, and trust that the universe knows what it is doing even when you do not. Thank you for listening to our story. I hope it gives you hope for your own unexpected love story that is waiting just around the corner.